What are your thoughts on Denver showing their competitive spirit and Kansas City looking like they faltered in the second half?
Well, when it came to the Broncos, I think they had no other choice but to try to get back into this game because at one point the Chiefs were dominating this game. It was 27 to nothing at one point. It was 20 to nothing. Russell Wilson throws a pick six. The Chiefs go up 27 to nothing in the second quarter. It just looked like another game where the Broncos were going to get smoked, and it was another game where Russell Wilson was just simply inept. But I have to give Russell Wilson and that Broncos offense some respect. They were able to put really those first, I would say, 20 minutes of the game behind them and lead some effective drives towards the end of that first half because they did score 14 points in that second quarter, and it did make it a little bit more competitive at halftime. Still, you were down two possessions, 27 to 14. Granted, it could be a lot worse. It could be 27 to 3 or 27 to 10 or still 27 to nothing. And I would say it had a lot to do with the effectiveness between Russell Wilson and Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy had a fantastic day. He had 3 total touchdowns against the Chiefs. He was able to make some plays happen, and he was really one of the biggest catalysts that got the Broncos back into striking distance as far as I saw it in this game. But, the one thing with the Broncos is Russell Wilson got hurt towards the end of the game. He suffered a concussion. He was rushing on a third down to pick up a first down. He was able to do that, but he had a pretty hard landing. It took a lot of turf into his helmet. He actually had like this big ass freaking bruise, or it looked like there was like a lot of swelling on the side of his head after that one play in particular, and he was ruled out. He probably had a concussion. He's probably in concussion protocol, and he probably won't be out of it for the next couple of days or so. And then they had to rely on a backup, and they just weren't able to string enough plays together to be able to get past that Chiefs defense. So when it comes to the Broncos, it's just kind of more of the same. They've been a relatively subpar team this year, and it just kind of goes to show. They just put themselves into such a big hole early on, and they just couldn't dig themselves out of it. But they did make them competitive, so I will give them that as like a silver lining. Now let me kick it to the Chiefs. The Chiefs had a bounce back win here, but it could have been more convincing. At first, it looked like it was convincing. You go up 27-0 on the road. Patrick Mahomes looked pretty solid. The defense was forcing some turnovers. It just looked like the Chiefs were kind of rebuilding back into that version that we've always seen from them for the last couple years. And with them coming off of a very close loss to the Bengals last week, this looked like the team that we've always kind of expected them to be. And then I got to say, second half, you could even say part of that second quarter, towards the latter half of that second quarter, it looked like they took their foot off the pedal. It looked like they went on autopilot. The defense was giving up points left and right. The offense wasn't stringing points along. And they gave the Broncos opportunities to get back into the game. And I have to say, Patrick Mahomes in the second half of that game against the Broncos, he did not look good. He had multiple turnovers in this game, and even late game decisions where the Chiefs need to extend some drives to convert some third downs to essentially ice the game. He ends up getting intercepted late in the fourth quarter, gives the Broncos an opportunity to really get back into the game. And fortunately for Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs defense was able to get some effective pass rushes against the Broncos offense, and the Chiefs were able to get basically what I would consider a game-sealing interception. And then the Chiefs effectively ran the ball the last couple plays of the game and iced it from there to finish it off. So a win is a win. You take it when you could get it. But I have to say, when it comes to the Chiefs specifically, they are really kind of an up and down team this year. There have been stretches where they've looked dominant. They've looked like that team of old where they'll hang 30 to 35 points on somebody, and Patrick Mahomes looks like a clear and runaway favorite for MVP. In this game, it started off that way, but man, the finish was not clean. And basically, there were large stretches of that second half where they were going through the motions, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They just couldn't get anything going defensively compared to what they were doing in the first half. And that's something that we have to monitor with the Chiefs moving forward as we get into the later stages of December and going into January. Can this team play well-rounded football for 60 minutes? Because as far as I see it, it's either one side of the team does well and the other team kind of does average to subpar, maybe even mediocre type of play. Because There are times where the offense was great and the defense doesn't look that good. You have a time where the offense isn't really doing that much, and then you have a time where the defense is actually stepping up and playing solid football. So it seems to me that they just need to get both the offense and the defense to be clicking on all cylinders at the same time. And if they could do that effectively for the next month as we get closer to the playoffs, the Chiefs are going to definitely be one of those teams that could be competing for a Super Bowl to represent the AFC this year. However, when you got teams to deal with like the Bills, you got teams to deal with like the Bengals, these are going to be tricky teams to go up against. And I'll tell you what, this is not going to be an easy path for the Chiefs here. They got to earn this. And I will say, they are not my prohibitive favorite to come out of the AFC right now. They've got a month to prove me otherwise before the playoffs start. But with close wins like this against the Broncos, when they were up 27 to nothing, and then they only win this game by basically one possession by the score of 34 to 28, there's some room for improvement here as far as I see it with the Chiefs. A win is a win. They did bounce back, but they could have been a little bit better in this game, especially in the second half. And I think they could definitely got to turn up on the defensive side of the ball. They got to clean up the turnovers on the offensive side of the ball. And I think if they really fix those two aspects of the team, I think they'll be fine. But I will say the road's going to be tricky for KC because there's some teams that can legitimately beat them, with the Bills and the Bengals being just some teams in mind. And then, maybe you could throw in another team on top of that. I don't know if the Chargers are going to be able to do it, but who knows? We'll kind of see where it goes from here, and I'll just kind of leave it at that.
I mean, the Chiefs' defense has been questionable for a good portion of the season. I'm looking at their schedule right now, and there have been a couple of teams that have scored over 25 points on them. The Bucks had 31. The Raiders had 29. You go back and you even look at the Chargers having 27. The Bengals had 27 in that loss last week. The Broncos scored 28, and that was a bad football team. So, I mean, you really look at it, and the Chiefs' defense, like Kyle said, has kind of been up and down pretty much all year. And Patrick Mahomes has shown flashes where, again, like Kyle alluded to, where he's going to pop off and be an MVP candidate. And then you have games like this where you have 3 interceptions. Let us not forget that Detroit, Denver's defense, shout out to Detroit, though. They did get the upset against Minnesota, but that's not what I'm talking about. Denver's defense is elite. I mean, Surtain is disgusting. Let's not forget that he is one of the best corners in the league. And you have Pat Mahomes basically getting sacked a couple of times, having a lot of turnovers. I mean, having to throw the ball damn near 50 times. It's like Kyle already said again. It's like I'm not going to sit here and repeat myself a multitude of times because it's like, the Chiefs just look weird the last few weeks. I mean, like they turned the ball over with Travis Kelce against the Bengals. This week, they took their foot completely off the gas pedal towards the end of the half and then into the second half. And Russell Wilson was looking like Russell Wilson of old. He was just kind of carving it up a little bit, a little 247, almost 250, 3 touchdowns. And he was sacked 6 times. So, like, why are the Chiefs playing down to their opponents? You know that you're better than this team. You know that you're a lot more competitive. You know that you are competing for another Super Bowl. Why did you just look at them and say, you know what, we scored 21 points in the second quarter? Like, we'll be all right. Like, no, you don't do that. You don't stop. Teams come. This is the National Football League. These are NFL professional teams. These teams can come back with a couple of 3 and outs and some good long drives. You can easily cut this lead and easily come and win. But that's not the case. And obviously, Kansas City had to turn it around and, obviously kind of like wake back up and do something. But I mean, if it wasn't for those 7 points in the third quarter, we might be crowning Denver the winner of this game because Kansas City didn't score in the fourth. So it's like, what are we talking about here? Did they really escape, or did Russell Wilson get hurt, and obviously that take away an opportunity for them to score another touchdown in the fourth? So I mean, it is what it is. Kansas City obviously moves on to 10-3, but I'm more nervous about Kansas City than I am Dallas because this is not a good look for Patrick Mahomes. Like, he has quite a bit of interceptions this season. He has had some games where he's had to force it. I mean, there was a game where he almost had to throw it 70 times, so they're leaning way too much on the passing attack. And I mean, they kind of abandoned the run. They only had 89 yards on the ground. So I'm really, really, really just keeping an eye on this because I cannot afford to put any confidence in Kansas City after a performance like this and a loss last week. back-to-back weeks where they looked very, very shaky, and it's just not a convincing appearance for me, at least. I know they came out with a win this week, but Russell doesn't get hurt. This could easily go in another direction. So kudos to Russell for coming back and having the best game of the season thus far. I mean, he had 57 yards on the ground, which is huge, which is another reason why Denver went out to acquire him in a trade. But I mean, he does have a concussion, so we will see how that goes and see if he's cleared by next week. But overall, good showing by the Broncos. Show that they have the potential when Russell plays up to par, and definitely not a good game by Kansas City by any means. A win is a win, yes, but when you're held to a pedigree like Kansas City, this is not the type of win you want to have. You do not want to have a nail biter.